Something truly disturbing is happening in Hollywood right now. And no, it's not just another celebrity breakup, red carpet blunder, or awkward award show moment. This is bigger, this is darker, and it's playing out quietly in courtrooms and inboxes far away from the glitz and glamour of the cameras. We're talking about a coordinated legal campaign, one that is threatening the very foundation of freedom of speech and digital privacy, one that is using Google, one of the most powerful tech companies in the world, as a weapon. And at the center of it all, Blake Lively. This week, creators across the internet, many of them women, many of them small voices operating independently, received subpoenas from Google. The orders were terrifyingly intrusive. The requests turn over everything: credit card details, bank records, IP addresses, watch time, emails, internal analytics, everything. And the reason? Because they dared to talk about Blake Lively, not defame her, not lie. Simply discuss a public legal dispute that Blake Lively herself initiated. 16 creators, 16 legal threats, 16 people being told that because they covered a public legal case, their private lives are now fair game. This isn't just disturbing, it's a message, a warning. And too many, it feels like an attack on freedom of the press, on free speech, on the right to report on matters of public concern. And if this tactic succeeds, it won't stop here. Because if Blake Lively's team can get Google to hand over your private data simply for covering her legal drama, what's stopping every other celebrity from doing the same? What happens when truth becomes a threat, when commentary becomes a crime? Let's break it all down. The drama began quietly. Creators started talking among themselves, saying they had received unexpected legal notifications from Google. At first, it seemed impossible. Most people assumed these messages were scams or phishing attempts. After all, why would a multimillionaire lister actress care about what a tarot card reader or astrologer on YouTube had to say? But within hours, that doubt turned to confirmation. Screenshots were shared, dates matched up, the legal language was real, the notifications were real, and the senders, Blake Lively's legal team. It turned out that Blake Lively's attorneys had filed a series of subpoenas, legal documents, that compel third parties to turn over information targeting 16 different creators who had one thing in common: they were covering Blake Lively's lawsuit against Justin Baldoni. Some of these creators had large platforms, others had fewer than 300 subscribers. One creator wasn't even monetized, she wasn't making a cent from her content, and yet her data was being demanded: financial data, IP addresses, everything. The reason cited in the subpoenas that these creators might have information relevant to the case. But here's the kicker: none of these creators were involved in the lawsuit. None of them had secret insider info. They weren't leaking confidential documents or acting maliciously. They were just analyzing public court records, sharing them with their audiences, and offering commentary. That's what journalists do. That's what analysts do. That's what every single news outlet does when it covers a legal case. So why were YouTubers being treated differently? Why were they being treated like criminals? Now let's talk about Google's role. YouTube is owned by Google, and Google has a policy for handling subpoenas. When a court-ordered subpoena is served, Google gives the user notice, usually with just a few days to respond, and then releases the requested information. Unless the user files a legal objection. Sounds fair, right? Wrong, because filing an objection isn't free. It often requires hiring a lawyer, understanding complex legal language, filing motions, meeting court deadlines, and doing it all under extreme pressure, sometimes with less than 72 hours to act. Most of the creators targeted in this campaign aren't rich, they're not corporations, they're not even full-time influencers. Some are hobbyists, some are academics, some are astrologers or former lawyers just trying to make sense of public information. These are everyday people who were suddenly thrust into a high-stakes legal nightmare. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. This isn't an isolated incident, it's part of a larger pattern. Blake Lively's legal battle with Justin Baldoni has already been accused of being full of PR, manipulation, and legal theatrics. But now many are saying that these subpoenas were a distraction, a way to redirect the public conversation away from Blake Lively's own upcoming deposition. Because here's what happened: just as the subpoenas were hitting inboxes, Blake Lively's lawyers filed motions asking for special accommodations in her deposition. She didn't want to be deposed at Brian Friedman's office. Friedman is Baldoni's attorney. She cited privacy concerns, safety concerns, celebrity status. She asked for a different location, a different format, special treatment. So let's get this straight: Blake Lively, a powerful Hollywood actress, wants full access to the bank accounts and emails of small creators, but when it's time for her to answer questions, she's suddenly too vulnerable to show up at a secure law office. That's not just hypocritical, that's manipulative. What's even more telling is the way this entire thing seems orchestrated. The subpoenas created chaos, creators were panicking, viewers were rallying. The narrative shifted from Lively's deposition to the creator's privacy, and in the middle of that storm, Blake Lively was quietly trying to delay discovery, extend deadlines, avoid answering the hard questions. Was it a coincidence or was it a legal smokescreen? Many believe it was the latter. One story in particular has become a symbol of just how far this intimidation campaign has gone. An astrologer named Janessa was among those who received a subpoena. At the time, she had fewer than 300 subscribers on her YouTube channel. She wasn't monetized, she wasn't profiting off the case. She was simply reading legal documents and offering astrological insight into what they meant. That was it, but that was enough to get subpoenaed. That was enough to be told that her private financial information, her Google account data, and her location logs were being requested in court. This case shook her, but it also rallied the community. Other creators started speaking out. Her subscriber count shot up, thousands of viewers expressed outrage, and in many ways Janessa's story became the heart of the resistance, an example of how even the smallest voice can be targeted, and how important it is to stand together. Because if it can happen to someone with 300 subscribers, it can happen to anyone. So what is Blake Lively's legal team actually looking for? That's the million-dollar question. Some say it's about finding so-called conspirators who might be spreading misinformation or coordinating behind the scenes. Others believe it's about silencing criticism, sending a message to creators: don't talk about this, or you'll regret it. But here's what's clear: the subpoenas aren't about justice, they're about fear. They're not targeted, they're broad, sweeping, aggressive. And what's worse, they appear to be disproportionately aimed at women. All of the known creators, served with one exception, are female. That fact alone should raise serious questions. Why are female journalists and commentators being singled out? Why is their privacy being invaded? Why is this being tolerated? While creators across the internet scrambled to figure out how to protect their privacy and legal rights, Blake Lively's legal team was quietly moving behind the scenes, pushing to delay her own deposition. The same woman who wants YouTubers' full bank records and Google account data claimed she was unsafe appearing in person for her deposition at Brian Friedman's office. Why? Because she's famous. That's not speculation. That's the actual argument being made by her team. They're saying that due to her celebrity status, Blake Lively shouldn't have to appear in person at the opposing counsel's office. They claim she's a target and that paparazzi will stake out the location, potentially creating chaos or security concerns. Let's be clear here, Brian Friedman's office is a high-security professional law firm. It has private entrances. It has systems in place for discreet legal proceedings. Lively would have private access, could bring her own security, and would be treated with full respect. But that wasn't enough for her. She wanted different terms, a different venue, a protective order to create legal distance. In short, she wanted special treatment. And while her lawyers made those demands in court, they were also weaponizing the subpoenas against critics. The timing couldn't be more obvious. While the creators were overwhelmed and distracted, Lively tried to quietly shift her own obligations. She pushed to extend the discovery deadline, seeking to delay the proceedings until the end of September. Why? Critics argue it's clear Blake Lively is buying time, delaying accountability, trying to make the public and the court forget what this lawsuit is really about. But it's not working. In fact, the backlash is growing and it's bigger than her team anticipated. After the subpoenas were exposed, creators large and small began rallying around those affected. The public saw through the intimidation tactics. Hashtags started trending. Legal experts began weighing in, and viewers, ordinary people who just want to know the truth, started pushing back hard. YouTubers who were once operating in isolation suddenly found themselves part of a community, united by a simple message: we will not be silenced. There's something incredibly powerful about watching a network of independent voices come together under pressure. These weren't people who agreed on everything. Some are lawyers, some are spiritualists, some are gossip commentators. But they were all targeted in the same way, and now they're standing together. Some creators began offering to help others file motions to quash. Viewers began donating to legal defense funds. Subscribers flooded the channels of smaller creators, like Janessa, showing them they weren't alone. And even outside of YouTube, the response was fierce. On TikTok, Reddit, and X, formerly Twitter, users began questioning how this could happen. Why Google didn't push back harder? Why a court would even entertain such sweeping subpoenas? Many began openly questioning whether Blake Lively, once considered America's sweetheart, was hiding something much darker. This isn't a good look for her, and no PR team can fully control this narrative now. One of the most revealing parts of this entire scandal: the absolute silence from the traditional media. Despite the drama, despite the serious First Amendment implications, despite the threat to digital speech and creator privacy, major outlets have been mostly silent. No front-page New York Times feature, no expose from The Hollywood Reporter, no segment from Good Morning America or Today. Why many are beginning to believe that the entertainment media complex, the red carpet networks, the glossy magazine empires, the talk show circuits, are complicit in protecting their celebrity relationships. They don't want to go up against someone like Blake Lively or her husband Ryan Reynolds. They don't want to risk being cut off from future exclusives, interviews, or movie promotions. And so they stay quiet. This silence has only fueled speculation. What is it they don't want people to see? The reality is, in today's media landscape, YouTubers, podcasters, and digital creators are often the only ones willing to say what others won't. They don't have to protect celebrity access. They don't rely on publicist-approved narratives. They can be honest, raw, and unfiltered. And that's exactly why this legal campaign was launched. Because truth in the hands of the independent press is dangerous to the powerful. Here's where things get even more suspicious. Multiple creators and observers have started to ask a critical question: where does Ryan Reynolds fit into all this? While Blake Lively is technically the plaintiff in the case against Justin Baldoni, many believe her husband, actor and businessman Ryan Reynolds, is not just aware of what's happening but may actually be behind the scenes pulling strings. Here's what we know: Ryan Reynolds is not just a movie star, he's a marketing genius, a branding expert. He owns production companies, he partners with tech firms. He knows how digital media works, and more importantly, he understands how to manipulate public narratives. One of the names frequently associated with him is Nick Shapiro, a former top executive at Airbnb and YouTube, now operating in the world of crisis management and intelligence-adjacent PR. If anyone knows how to use the legal system and social media tools to bury a story or scare critics into silence, it's these guys. And that raises a terrifying possibility. What if these subpoenas weren't just legal overreach? What if they were a calculated move coordinated by people who know exactly how to use Google, YouTube, and digital silence as weapons? People are starting to wonder, is Ryan Reynolds trying to protect his wife or protect himself? And if that's the case, what is he so desperate to hide? Let's talk about Blake Lively's lawyer, Ezra Hudson. Ezra is the one who signed the subpoenas. She is the legal force pushing this wave of digital surveillance. She's been central in Blake's legal strategy. But there's a bizarre and infuriating twist to her story. Before this scandal broke, Ezra Hudson had a presentation listed on her law firm's website titled Freedom of Speech in the Workplace and on Social Media. It was all about protecting speech, encouraging open expression, upholding constitutional values. Well, guess what? That page mysteriously disappeared once the subpoenas were exposed and creators began pointing out the irony. Ezra Hudson's presentation on free speech was deleted. Now if you try to access the link, you get a page not found error. The hypocrisy is stunning. A lawyer who gave speeches about free speech is now leading the legal charge to crush it. This isn't just irony, it's intentional erasure, it's image management. And it's exactly why people no longer trust the powerful to play fair. You can't preach free speech one day and then turn around and demand YouTubers' private banking info the next. The mask is off. Blake Lively's entire argument, her entire legal strategy, is built around the concept of privacy. She doesn't feel safe appearing in person for a deposition. She doesn't want paparazzi outside. She doesn't want clips leaked online or questions asked by opposing counsel in a setting she can't control. In other words, she wants to protect her image. But while she insists on that privacy for herself, she is simultaneously demanding full access to other people's data, creators who have no resources, no lawyers, and no multi-million-dollar safety net. She wants our privacy, but not hers. This contradiction is galling, it's outrageous, and it's one of the reasons why the public is turning against her. You can't demand special rules for yourself and then strip others of their protections. You can't claim to be the victim while launching legal missiles at critics and commentators. This isn't about safety, it's about control. And it's about silencing anyone who might expose the truth. So here we are at the end of a very different kind of Hollywood story. Not a love triangle, not a film premiere, not a scandal carefully leaked to TMZ for publicity. No, this story is something far more dangerous, far more consequential. This is the story of power, of control, of a celebrity using every legal and digital tool available to silence voices that dare to question her. Blake Lively, once seen as a symbol of charm and elegance, has taken off the gloves. Her legal team has issued sweeping subpoenas through Google, targeting 16 independent creators, some with large followings, some with barely 300 subscribers. Their crime: commenting on a legal case she herself made public by filing it. Let's not forget that this wasn't a private dispute dragged into the spotlight by opportunists. This was a lawsuit initiated by Blake Lively. She put her name on the filing. She pushed the case into public view. And now that the public is talking, questioning, dissecting, analyzing, she's demanding silence. But something happened that her team didn't plan for. People fought back. At first it was confusion, then fear. And then something powerful happened: resistance. Creators began banding together. Viewers began paying attention. The conversation shifted from Blake Lively's lawsuit to the ethics of weaponizing subpoenas against critics. And suddenly what was supposed to be a moment of intimidation turned into a movement. People realized if Blake Lively can come after an astrologer with 300 subscribers, she can come after anyone. If she can use Google to demand your personal information, your IP logs, your financials, your private communications, then no one is safe. And for what? To protect her image, to delay a deposition, to create chaos while trying to buy time in court. This isn't about justice. This isn't about safety. This is about control. The hypocrisy is blinding. What makes this entire situation even more grotesque is the hypocrisy. Blake Lively is asking the courts to protect her from discomfort. She doesn't want to show up to a deposition at a secure law office because she's worried about paparazzi. She doesn't want to answer questions under oath. She wants extensions, accommodations, loopholes, all while demanding full access to other people's private information. She wants to know how often creators upload, what devices they use, where they logged in from, how much money they made. She wants their subscriber data, analytics, even their emails. But she doesn't want to walk into a secure law office with her security detail. That's not fear, that's not trauma, that's entitlement. It's the kind of arrogance that only comes from knowing the system is designed to protect you, from believing that being rich and famous means the rules apply differently, and maybe they do. Maybe Blake Lively will win some legal battle here. Maybe her team will manage to delay discovery. Maybe Google will hand over the data. Maybe the subpoenas won't be quashed. But even if she wins in court, she's losing in the court of public opinion. Because people are watching, people are waking up, and people are realizing just how fragile our digital rights truly are. Google's role: silent but dangerous. Google, for its part, has done what Google always does: comply. The tech giant has become the unwitting middleman in a war over freedom of speech. Their policy is simple: if the subpoena is valid, they notify the user. But what happens next? That's up to the creator. They have to fight it, file a motion, hire a lawyer, risk everything, and most can't. Most YouTubers don't have legal teams. They don't have thousands of dollars to burn just to protect their email address or prevent their IP log from being exposed, so they're forced into silence or compliance. This is the loophole that powerful people are exploiting. And unless Google decides to change its policy, unless they take a moral stand on behalf of their creators, this will keep happening. Blake Lively won't be the last. Other celebrities will see this tactic and use it. Politicians, billionaires, corporations. The internet will become a place where commentary is punished, where transparency is feared, where creators must censor themselves or face legal consequences. And that's the real threat. This isn't just a celebrity scandal. This is a war on independent media. The mainstream outlets are silent. The tabloids are protecting their access. The entertainment shows are ignoring the story, but the creators, the people, they're the ones sounding the alarm. And it's not just about Blake Lively. It's about everyone who thinks they can control public perception with money, lawyers, and corporate compliance. Because here's the truth: journalism is no longer owned by networks. Commentary isn't just on cable. Real analysis lives on TikTok, on Reddit, on YouTube. It's raw, it's messy, it's emotional, but it's also real. And that's what makes it so threatening to the establishment. They can't control it. So they tried to kill it, but that's not working anymore. So what happens next? The legal battle continues. Blake Lively will eventually have to face deposition, whether she likes it or not. Her team may continue to delay, to posture, to deflect, but time is running out. More creators are stepping forward. Legal organizations are beginning to take notice. And a growing portion of the public is asking the right questions. Creators are filing motions to quash. Legal commentators are raising the alarm. Viewers are subscribing, sharing, and standing behind those who've been targeted. And Blake Lively, she may be winning short-term skirmishes, but the damage to her image is deep. Because once people see you as a bully, it's hard to go back. There's no PR campaign, no People magazine cover, no movie role that can undo that. The final message: we're not going anywhere. Here's the part Blake Lively's team didn't count on. They thought creators would get scared, that they'd back down, that they'd delete videos, stop talking, go silent. But instead they got louder, they got stronger, they got smarter. Because you can subpoena a video, but you can't subpoena the truth. You can threaten one creator, but you can't silence a movement. You can try to control the narrative, but the internet is bigger than you. Blake Lively opened this door. She made her lawsuit public. She called attention to herself. And when the public responded, she tried to lock the door behind her. Too late. We're here. We're watching. We're documenting. And we're not going away. This isn't just about Blake Lively. This is about every creator, every journalist, every commentator who speaks truth to power and refuses to be intimidated. The message is clear. We're not afraid. We will not be silenced. And we will not stop telling the truth. They became the tool through which one powerful celebrity could reach into the private lives of her critics and extract everything just for talking about her. Think about what this means. If Google hands over your data without a proper fight, then any celebrity, politician, or wealthy business figure could simply target their critics and journalists in the exact same way. All they have to do is claim that your coverage might be relevant to a legal matter, and suddenly your emails, your location data, your financial info, it's all on the table. This isn't about Blake Lively anymore. This is about the future of online speech.